Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Advocacy in Action. Meet Southeast Michigan's county leaders, sponsored by Comcast Business. Please welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Barua.
Good morning. How is everyone today? Okay, let's try this again. Good morning. How is everyone today? There we go. Awesome. I want to thank my personal cheering squad, Dave Coulter. I don't know what I owe you, but thank you for starting the applause. It's like, someone's got to clap for the guy. Well, listen, welcome, everyone. We are just delighted that we have such a fantastic turnout this morning, and it's so nice that you all are in 3D as opposed to 2D. Thank you all for wearing pants. I know that's kind of a challenge. We're still getting back to normal. In fact, the Chamber, we haven't done a lot of these in-person events, obviously in the last 2.5 years, but it's absolutely fitting that one of our first in-person events is really to focus on the incredible leadership we are seeing from our county executives in the core Detroit region. And we are just so delighted today to feature County Executive Dave Coulter, County Executive Mark Hackel, and County Executive Warren Evans. And I know we're going to have a fantastic program with great dialogue today. I do want to start with two very important thank yous. First of all, we would all not be here without the tremendous support of Comcast Business. Thank you. Pamela Dover is in the room with her team. Pamela, thank you for all that you do. You guys are everywhere, and you did so much good, especially during COVID, for so many communities. We just appreciate that. I also want to thank my friend Carol Cain from Detroit, from Detroit CBS. The Detroit Free Press, a 12-time. I had to check to see how many Emmys Carol has won, and it's an even dozen. But we're just delighted that Carol Cain has taken time out of her incredibly busy schedule today to be the moderator of this really great program. The Detroit region is stronger and healthier than it has ever been. Economically, government stability and finances, regional cooperation, and so on. And the reason why this region is as strong as it is, and we've made as much progress as we have in the last several years, even through the unprecedented events of COVID, is thanks in large part to the leadership of the three gentlemen that are going to be on the program today. You know, you look at Dave Coulter, who's actually the new kid on the block, although it's not that new anymore. He has, really rekindled the spirit of regional cooperation in his county. He's been a leader to improve regional connectivity through transit. He is focused on the livability and affordability of his communities, and with paying particular attention to parks. And while the Chamber and the state are working on achieving an adult attainment goal for education of 60%, Dave's already working on an 80% goal in Oakland County. Mark Hackel has set the standard for what a county executive should be in the new role, not really new, but he's the first county executive in Macomb County, and I really fear for the man or the woman who has to follow in Mark's incredible shoes. He is a leader who supports the critical SMART bus system, and Mark, we thank you so much for your incredible leadership there. SMART is so important to our region. He is a leading voice in the state for infrastructure. Roads, certainly, but broadband and water, Mark is on the forefront of these critical state issues. And Warren Evans, who would have thought when Warren Evans first got elected, we would be looking at Wayne County with an A bond rating from S&P. Talk about riding a ship of state. No one has done it better than Warren Evans. He has, I'm anxious, this is a little tease, he's got a nice announcement coming up at our Mackinac Policy Conference in a couple of weeks. And as you all know, he just had the honor of having the North Terminal at DTW named after him, and he didn't have to be dead to get that, which I think is absolutely awesome. So, with that, I just want to thank you again all for coming. I know we have a fantastic program. I am delighted that I've got 3 friends on the stage today with Carol, Dave, Warren, and Mark, and I'm so glad that you are all here to see this. So with that, we'll get started with the program. Thanks for being here.
Please welcome Senior Director of Marketing and Business Development at Comcast Business, Pamela Dover.
Good morning. It is so good to see all of you. What a beautiful, beautiful day. And you guys look good in the audience. It's so great to be out. On behalf of Comcast Business, we are so proud to sponsor this Advocacy in Action series for the Chamber. I want to just thank Sandy and the Chamber staff for outstanding leadership. And I just love all the events that they do because it's so impactful for all of us. Today's event is especially impactful because we have the big 3 that can't wait to hear what they're going to say to us today, give us insights and updates on issues, on the economic impact to all of us that's going to just really revolutionize what they've been doing and looking forward to what they're going to do. Comcast is committed to the communities that we serve. We have technology that powers residential as well as businesses, and we're really proud of our gig speed network, which is the largest in the country. We're so committed to community investment. We invest in the community with many programs, and one is Internet Essentials, where it is one of the largest broadband adoption programs in the country. We also invest in Comcast Lift Zones, which provides safe places for kids and families to access the internet outside of their homes. And our newest, I love this program called Comcast Rise. Have you guys heard of the Comcast Rise program? If you have, raise your hand. No? If you haven't, please go to ComcastRise.com. This is a program in which small disadvantaged businesses that were severely impacted by COVID can gain technology makeover for their business or media for their business, and it's just a wonderful program. We have funded over about 500 businesses thus far with this program in the state of Michigan, and really proud of it. And when you go on that website, tell businesses to apply. But most importantly, I want you to look out for an announcement that's coming on May 12th. It's really, really big. So in closing, just want to say, very excited to hear from the big 3, and also Comcast is here for you to just all broadband needs of your businesses and homes. Can't forget about the homes. So enjoy the discussion today.
Please welcome Oakland County Executive David Coulter, Wayne County Executive Warren Evans, Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel, and to moderate the discussion, senior producer and host of the CBS 62 Michigan Matters and columnist at Detroit Free Press, Cain.
Good morning and welcome to the Detroit Regional Chamber's Big 3 event here. I'm Cain with CBS 62. Host Michigan Matters airs on 8 a.m. Sunday on CBS. Also columnist at Detroit Free Press. So it is so good seeing you in person, and hello in person. A clap for us finally being able to get back together. I also really want to give a shout out to Sandy and Tammy and the rest of the Chamber crew for putting on not just this event, but these virtual events the past 2.5 long years. and helping us keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. So we really should give an applause to the chamber for these things. And that's sort of really where I'd like to start the conversation here, gentlemen. Thank you so much for doing this. We have talked virtually, so it's nice to see you in person finally. I'm going to ask you for a really succinct answer to this. Because,
Mark, did you hear that?
Yeah, so Mark, I won't be starting with you is what this means here. So the last 2.25 years has been, you could use various adjectives. I'll just call it a nightmare and leave it at that. But how would you describe in a sentence, from your standpoint as a county leader, what has it been like? And again, describe what it's been like for you.
The last 2 years of COVID, you mean? Or just...
As a county executive, dealing with COVID, dealing with so many other issues. We've had social justice, fallout of George Floyd. We've had political rancor going on. Just from your standpoint, describe in a sentence. I'm almost asking you to be like an editor. Edit what? Yeah.
It's not easy for us, but
I know.
Because there's a lot of leaders in this room, I would just say this. You know, I became county executive 6 months before COVID hit, and then a series of things. But there's no training manual for most of the leadership jobs that you have, and so the key. So you just can't predict what's going to happen from day to day, which I think is a reason a lot of us like this kind of work and like leadership. But it's to make sure that you understand what your values are, what your style is, and then you apply that to the situation rather than try to anticipate the situations, because you'll never be able to outguess what could actually happen.
Okay, and I know I'm calling you all by your first names because if I say county executive, you're all going to pipe up and say yes. So Warren, the last 2 years, what's it been like being county executive?
Well, first, that was a run-on sentence.
My editor here.
So you're giving him a flunking grade at the start here? Okay.
Challenging and interesting. I mean, it certainly has been troublesome, both on our personal sides and at work, but you know, it's been a challenge. You learn in the situations that you haven't been in before, so part of it has been a real challenge.
I think it's been insightful, and I say that, you know, as law enforcement, emergency management, you tend to watch people how they act during a crisis, and you know, whether it's watching the other municipalities, how they engage with the county, the school districts, the healthcare system, just seeing how everybody came together during something that was very unique and different for all of us. It was insightful for me because I watched the personalities and see who rises to the top, people that want to be part of a solution as opposed to those that want to be part of a problem. And so with that, it was very insightful for me, and I learned a lot from it with my own team, as well as seeing externally who those folks you need to turn to during the next crisis that are going to want to help you, build upon whatever the benefit that you can bring to this crisis it could be. So very insightful.
Yeah, we're gathering this morning during interesting times and an interesting political environment. So let's just dive into some questions. And Mark and Dave, I'm going to start with you because I think I already know what Warren's answer will be to this. But do you think Detroit's ability to attract big events like the NFL draft, which it achieved in 2024, and that deserves a huge round of applause because it took years and years and years to get. This did not happen in a vacuum, and I know some folks involved are in this room, so kudos to all of you for that. But is that good for the entire region, Mark?
There's no question about it. I mean, Detroit is the urban center of Southeast Michigan. I mean, we may have little pockets of communities within, Macomb County, Oakland, or Wayne that, have their thriving downtowns and all that. But let's face it. I mean, if you don't have a thriving, Detroit, that is a challenge for all of us. And so to see the excitement of the entertainment, the sports venues, and attracting major events like that is something that I think benefits the entire region, without question.
Yeah, and Dave?
Absolutely. When you go around the country, I don't know about you, but if you're on the other side of the country or in another country, you say, I'm from Detroit. This is Metro Detroit. We're in this together. And it's important for our region to do well. When the region does well, we all do well. And so events like the draft and other things, I was cheering.
Yeah. Well, I recently had on Michigan Matters Claude Molinari and Mark Hollis, who were very involved in the 2024 draft bid and bringing it here. While it was great to finally get the draft here, they talked about the inability being able to go after bigger venues, i.e. things like the Super Bowl, because the lack of hotel rooms. Obviously, short of building a bunch of new hotels, which takes years to do. There was conversation about Washtenaw, Oakland, Macomb, where there are some hotels, being able to bring those folks from those hotels and include those numbers to downtown so they could include them in the bid. And this gets into the conversation, which is always 900-pound gorilla in the room, regional transportation. We've had so much conversation about this, and is it possible to move this conversation about finally having meaningful regional transit from discussion to tangible results? Dave?
Yes. And I applaud my friend Warren here, who took helped lead a real valiant effort right before COVID. I know, and has the scars and the bruises to show for it. We tried to use the Municipal Partnership Act. I won't get into the details of transit.
Yeah.
For 40 years, we've been kind of tripping over ourselves on how to get this forward, and I give Warren a lot of credit. But those discussions have not ended. The need has only grown, in my humble opinion. And if we talk about a stronger region, we're the only region in the country that doesn't have some kind of transit system, and it holds us back in a lot of ways. Not just for the users of the system, but for companies that want to come here for economic development for a whole host of reasons. But I have a new appreciation for the difficulties of it, but I'm not giving up. I'm still optimistic. I don't have as many bruises as these guys.
I know, Warren, you have something to say, but hold it on. I'm going to skip over. Mark?
Yeah, I argue we do have a regional transit system here in Southeast Michigan, and Macomb County is the only county that is all in. There isn't an opt-out of any municipality in Macomb County. 27 unique, distinct municipalities in Macomb County since the 1990s have had the opportunity to vote on millages in Macomb County. Millage increases, obviously renewals, and they have always stepped up and supported every one of those millages and all those requests. Again, we did it because our Board of Commissioners said we're going to put it on the ballot as the entire county. Now, whether Wayne or Oakland do that, that's up to them. That is not for me to decide. But I argue in Macomb County, we have bought into the SMART system, and we know the SMART system can grow to the extent that we need to as a region if we have everybody involved and everybody participating. Dwight is here, and Dwight, if you would stand up for a second. I hate to call you out like this. Dwight is the director of the SMART system.
Yeah.
And thank you, Dwight. And I call him out for this reason. It's unique because the asset they provide us doesn't matter. In the northern part of Macomb County, what they have with those direct connects and direct routes, and obviously the main buses that are going up down the main thoroughways, we have transit in Macomb County, always have, and it'll be on the ballot again this year as a county-wide millage. And so I've got to tip a hat to Dwight and his team, because you just got through talking about the pandemic. We didn't have to ask SMART. SMART asked us when we figured out we had got to figure out how do we take care of getting some of these senior citizens to some of these locations during this pandemic to get them their vaccines. SMART offered up any senior in Macomb County, anywhere. They will provide that direct ride for that senior in Macomb County, and did just that for the entire county of Macomb. And thank you for doing what you did for SMART for the people of Macomb County.
So, Warren, meaningful regional transit. We've been talking about it. How do we move, do you think, this forward to have it more inclusive?
It takes all three of us to figure out regional solutions. I mean, I don't, object to anything that Mark just said, but the reality is, we have a region where transit is a problem in many places. And it's an evolution. I mean, obviously, folks did not like the initial plan, which may have been more elaborate than folks were ready to deal with. And by the way, elaborate also means costly. So,
right.
To me, SMART is a strong institution. SMART's created some new travel opportunities of late. The Flex program, which is almost works like an Uber. Yeah. Type system, and because part of the problem is getting into neighborhoods where people are landlocked, getting out to major thoroughfares. So, I mean, maybe expansions of that helps to create at least the first generation transit before folks get to generation 2. But I mean, I think it's not going to happen until the three of us sit down and, as my grandfather would have said, cut the hog. We got to come to some decisions about where we give a little, where we take a little. But it needs to happen. And I think the pandemic showed significantly, along with healthcare, the problems that you have when you don't have the mobility for people to get from one place to the other.
Quick follow-up to that. The last time we were together on stage was at the Free Press's Breakfast Club event. What was the conversation about? Regional transit. And there was talk then about trying to maybe put something on the 2022 ballot. for voters, and obviously the pandemic hit. The Apple Card got shaken up here. So where does the effort stand, do you think, in terms of trying to put something forth on the ballot?
Well, I'm glad Mark recognized the new leadership at SMART, because that's going to be a key component of it. COVID has devastated their industry. They're still recovering. I think SMART ridership is at about 80% of pre-COVID numbers. Ride shares have only continued to grow, so how does that enter into the equation? So we have new challenges to build a transit system, but I do want to be clear that we have the bus system, the SMART system, the mobility system is the foundation of it. But when I talk about transit, I'm talking about, can we get to a BRT or a light rail, which is a lot more expensive,
right,
or something really transit-oriented, above and beyond the mobility that SMART offers. But first, we have to make sure that SMART and DDOT are shored up, that they can provide the backbone. It doesn't do any good to have a line-up Woodward if the SMART routes down 9 Mile and 8 Mile and M59 can't get you there. So it's a coordinated, complicated issue, but we're not going to give up. At least I'm not.
Mark, real quickly, we're going to move on to other subjects real quickly if you want something to add.
No worries. And again, it's unique because I got to say this. I mean, Dwight could be up here speaking on behalf of SMART, but it's always good to have somebody else speaking on your behalf. It adds more value to the conversation, I think, on behalf of that organization. There isn't anything SMART can't do. If there's a baseline where everybody is bought into the SMART system, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, like Macomb County is, there is not one community that has opted out. It would be amazing the amount of money that would be brought into the system, and they will provide solutions for whatever it is we're talking about. Even if it is light rail, if they're talking about getting into those neighborhoods, SMART does that for Macomb County residents no matter where you're at. If you're up in Richmond, if you're in Romeo, if you're down in East Point, they are our solution, and if we have questions or concerns about it, they're always at the table having those conversations. So what I say is, let's make it smarter. Let's add to one that we know has a tremendous value here in this region, and let's get all on board by doing what Macomb County has been doing since the 1990s, being all in.
Another issue, pressing issue that all of us, anyone driving here today, whether it was seeing the construction barrels on the freeway or dealing with accidents, potholes, people getting frustrated, driving crazy, we have a decaying infrastructure here. It's roads, it's bridges, it's everything there. There's COVID dollars coming in to help with roads and bridges. Dave, let me start with you. Are the infrastructure and the dollars that are coming in, real quickly, is it enough, do you think? And what are you, if I said single point, one thing it's going to in your county?
Yeah, it's not enough. And you could say the state of Michigan is going to get somewhere close to $8 billion from the infrastructure package. And you'd say, well, come on, $8 billion. But the reality of it is that goes to MDOT and state roads. So Warren and Mark and I, in Oakland County, we've done the math. We're going to get about $3 million a year for the next 4 or 5 years that comes to Oakland County. Just to put that in perspective, we could redo a half a mile of a 5-lane road. So that is not going to significantly impact the local roads and the county roads that we have. And so I think one of the things we certainly agree on is that, and you guys have talked about this longer than me, the funding formula for roads in Michigan needs to get fixed so that more funds come down to where most of the people live. And we've talked about this for a long time, but the infrastructure bill, and you see that fancy price tag, is not going to significantly impact your local roads or our county roads that I can see.
Warren?
Sounds like a big money number, but it's not enough. And Dave is absolutely correct. It's a major problem. We've all taken steps to try to analyze our road systems to determine what kind of maintenance program should we be on. How do we get away from waiting till a road completely crumbles to redo it instead of being able to surface other ones. But the money is just not there really to do it the way it needs to be done. And I don't see an end game. I mean, part of the problem is the timing that the money should come from the state and what it will go towards. It'll help us plan to figure out what it is that we're planning to do. But it's a significant problem. I mean, the money that the state has, if they gave it to large communities starting tomorrow, still wouldn't fix it, but it would help to get us, in a little better place.
Yeah, Mark?
We've all heard the governor talk about fix the damn roads. I mean, that's been out there. But, from a perspective of whether you're MDOT, you're a county road department, or local DPW, there isn't a damn road or a damn bridge we can't fix. It's about fixing the funding so we can fix those damn roads and those damn bridges. So I offer that to the legislature, and I say that for this reason. It's got to be sustainable funding. It can't be these one-time shot in the arms, as Dave and Warren just got through saying. Billions of dollars coming from the federal government, which, by the way, has not been approved. So this COVID money that we've got right now is for many other things other than for infrastructure dealing with roads. So it doesn't deal with roads. We have not seen any of that coming our way. Will we take it? Absolutely. So we can fix a road here and a bridge there. But the reality is, how do we get ahead of this problem? And part of our responsibility, and we're working on it with the counties, with our county department of roads, is what is the ask? What are we looking for? In other words, what do I need to make it sustainable? This year I'm spending $80 million from Department of Roads in Macomb County on road projects. That's wonderful. We're fixing some roads, we're fixing some bridges, but we're still getting behind. We're seeing more and more of those roads deteriorate because it's not enough. Well, the question is, what is enough? And then what is that solution that's going to provide you that sustainable funding? Is it responsibility of the federal government to provide that sustainable funding? Is it responsibility of the state to provide that? We know Act 51 has caused us a challenge. Or then if they're not going to fix that sustainability of the funding, then we need to turn to local jurisdictions to figure that out with legislatures, because the legislature is responsible for funding the needs, whether it's public safety, public health, or our public roads. So if we can find a way to figure out who is going to be the one that's going to step up and finally say, we're going to be doing something, and unfortunately it's going to cost us more money to do that. Now some are saying, are you putting forth to say that we need to raise taxes? Well, I'm just saying this. If we don't, we're going to continue to get further behind with what we're seeing with our roads.
And Warren, I know you want to add something to it, but real quickly, you preside over an area that has among the oldest freeway infrastructure system in the whole region here. We know from last summer's flooding how much of an issue this is, just obviously so pronounced. Are you given a chance to provide input to MDOT or the governor's office about what your specific needs? You're all talking about what your needs are, but do you get a chance to sit down, whether it's the governor or Paul Adjumar, whoever it is, and say, hey, here's what's going on, here's what we need, here's what it's going to cost, that kind of thing? Do you have those conversations?
No, absolutely you have the conversations, but the conversations don't pay the bills. We do have conversations. They haven't turned into what needs to happen. I agree with both my partners here. The reality is the formula for funding roads is terrible. And it affects Wayne County more than anywhere because we got the oldest infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, we were here first. We got 300 bridges, in Wayne County, every different kind of architecture you can find, some of them 100 years old. Find somebody to fix that bridge. It's costly, and that has to be factored in the amount of funding. And not just roads, Carol. I see more and more all of the time now that Wayne County and Detroit are lumped together way too much for my liking. In many areas, and you can take COVID for one, I have, 1.2 million people who don't live in Detroit, in a bunch of communities that, in my mind, are underfunded all of the time, because if money goes to Detroit, then pat me on the back too. Right. That's not necessarily the way things ought to be. And so I think there's a structural, and I think it's historic. I don't think it's anything that the governor has necessarily done. It's just we're kind of the redheaded stepchild for Detroit. Right. And that's not a good place to be, and I'm advocating all of the time to try to fill in that void.
So let's move on to something else, which also is kind of in that same vein of a regional thing. The Great Lakes Water Authority, which was created to address some of these regional issues. I believe they're still in the process of hiring an executive director for it. Mark, how pleased are you with the authority?
Yeah, I was challenged with that early on, and I say that because, the gag order that was in place, I don't think there's any secret. I was one of those that was kind of violating the gag order, because I look at a gag order as something that basically, from law enforcement perspective, that applies to a civil and or a criminal case where you don't want to impact the jury. And here we're trying to create kind of a utility, a public utility, and working through that, and the people that we're representing are the public. And so to not be able to talk publicly about it, or even the media who was asking questions, I found very frustrating because there were parts of that conversation that the public needed to know. And so whether it was, the number of votes that each one of us got and how that vote would take place, the amount of money that, Detroit was going to get right off the top, those were concerns I had. So that being said, fast forward, we were able to appoint somebody, put them on that Great Lakes Water Authority. We did. And, they've been challenging all along the way because one of the big concerns that was never fixed from the day one was dealing with this Highland Park issue. It was never resolved, and it needed to be resolved as part of the conversation, and it wasn't. So where we're at today, whether you're in Wayne, Oakland, whether you're in the western Wayne, whether you're in Oakland County or Macomb County, you're paying for the debt that Highland Park owes right now. And that's just not right. It's been going on for almost a decade and a half. So somebody had to call it out and say, we need to fix it. Nobody wants to turn off the water in Highland Park. We're not looking to do that. But if it's a debt they don't owe, then why are we paying the excess for that debt if it's not owed? And so far, we've been able to work with Candace Miller and our lawyers. We brought them in, and I think we just recently got a pretty positive ruling that's going to force the hand at some point in time. And unfortunately, it's going to be a challenge for Highland Park because they've got bigger issues than just this water bill issue that we're fighting over right now.
And I know there's an awful lot more to say about that. We're not going to resolve it here, so if we can move on, because I know our time is tight. Unless you guys are like jumping out of your seats, you have to say something about it.
I want to say this. I mean, Gliwa has its challenges, but it's a great example of how we can come together as a region and provide an important service. I think it's a far better model than the Detroit Water and Sewer Department, just treating everybody like a customer without a seat at the table. So I'm glad we have a board member that's there representing the interests. Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with Mark. Our community shouldn't be paying for other communities' water. But in general, I think it's an example of a regional success, frankly.
Okay. Warren, you want to add anything to it?
No, I'm so steeped in this. I was president of the Detroit Board of Water Commissioners for 10 years.
Oh, I didn't know that, so I wasn't
prior. No. And I didn't take it that way.
Dave, you want to take that back a little bit?
I agree with him that Gliwa creates an environment that gives everybody some reputation. I didn't take offense to that at all. I don't think you thought I did. But anyway, it is something where people need to get on the same page to figure out how to solve it. It's the worst case I've ever seen of kicking the can down the road. Highland Park says we only owe this amount of money. This one says, well, no, you owe this. The state says, well, we're not responsible, or we're a party to the lawsuit. And I need a group of people to get in a room and figure out how we start to move to fix this. And the delinquent bill, and I'll stop in a second.
Okay.
The delinquent $50 million bill, no good business person would pay it anyway because the leaks in Highland Park are so bad that if you paid the bill today, you'd have a problem tomorrow. There needs to be a concerted effort.
And I know we're never going to be able to resolve this all here. By the way, anyone?
We might be able to. I think we're getting
somewhere here. Anyone from Highland Park here want to admit to it? Raise your hand.
Now you're asking for it.
Well, let's move on to something I know you'll all agree about, and that is this. Our future is electric. We're talking planes, trains, automobiles. We're going electric whether we want to or not. Just if I were to say again, this is a sentence because we're running short on time. How is your county gearing up, preparing for that electric future? And Mark, I'll start with you.
I just thought I'll make it brief. Ford Motor Company. When it comes to the engine plant up in Romeo, we can turn that from combustion to electrification overnight. Just give us that opportunity. So in Macomb County, we've been working with our suppliers, automotive industry, to try to figure out how do we be more competitive in that area. But unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of this stuff going outstate, and there needs to be more of a concerted effort on behalf of the state and the MEDC to try to figure out how do we lock that in here in Michigan.
Are you going to change your slogan from "Make Macomb your home" to "Make Macomb your electric home"?
We can do that.
Okay, all right. We just did. I'll give you a headline, and there you go, Warren.
No, we think in Wayne County, Detroit's doing some great things in terms of EVs, and we've created outside of Wayne County a number of suppliers that are filling in a void now to help with EV stuff. But I think the greatest opportunity for us is airport expansion between Detroit Metro Airport and Willow Run. A lot of developable land out there. There are people waiting to sign leases for it if we can get some of the infrastructure work done. And I think a lot of that is going to be supporting the EV industry.
We're going through a transformation, a revolution.
Yes.
And it is being televised, by the way. This revolution is being televised. So, Dave?
And we secured a great project, the largest investment that General Motors has ever made in its history, and if you think about the history of General Motors, that's huge, was in EVs, and part of that was in Oakland County at the Lake Orion plant where the trucks and SUVs are going to be electrified, and that's wonderful. And that's the good news for our region. The challenge that you mentioned is very real, which is electric vehicles have a lot less parts. So this is going to be very disruptive in our supplier industry and in companies that, the tier 1s and 2s and whatnot. And so we're really leaning in on, we call it Project Diamond, but we're really leaning in on how to help our smaller to mid-sized manufacturers compete in a world that's going to be upside down from what they know. And so it's a challenge, but a huge opportunity. And the fact that we got that project says that Metro Detroit can compete for folks who think that we're not up to that.
So my perfect next follow-up question to that. Last week, Joe Biden was in Ohio, talking about investments in Ohio there. You came out and invited Joe Biden to come to Oakland County as a result. Yes. What was the reason? And have you heard from the White House?
The reason is because the idea that he's pushing, which is Industry 4.0, 3D printers, and greater speed and mobility innovation in the manufacturing, is exactly the project that we've launched and where we needed to head. So I thought, rather than talk about what we could do, you should come here and talk about what we're already doing. We haven't had an official response from the White House yet, so I'll keep you posted. But I would love to have him or the Commerce Secretary or anybody else see exactly what we're already doing with our Project Diamond, because we're laser focused. I'm bullish on manufacturing still. We have 3,000 manufacturers in Oakland County, but we won't have that many if we just ignore them and don't give them the support they need.
Have you mentioned this to Mike Duggins, as he just met with Joe Biden a couple of weeks ago? Maybe he could bring him back this way?
Well, he's not going to invite him to Oakland, but...
You never know. What about this newfound regional cooperation, right?
Where is the mayor? I'll have to ask him. All right.
Hey, this is the county executive
That's right.
gathering, so he'll be involved when the Big Four gathers next time here. So the other thing, too, that is another issue. This was a pressing issue before the pandemic became a reality, and this has even grown more pronounced in different ways. Talent gap, workforce divide. We know at the same time we've got an aging population in our state, a lot of baby boomers bailing out. There's some conversations about ways to bring them in. And I know all of you could spend the next 3 hours talking about this, but what one thing is your county doing to try to help address this talent problem, issue, gap that we have? And Warren, why don't you start on this?
Well, I think one of the big things is the connectivity is never as good as it ought to be between the schools, the colleges, the places, the skilled trades programs that do the training, the type of training. I mean, I've seen many times community colleges will have a training program and you got people graduating and then the job's no longer there because they're behind the curve in terms of what it is that they're training, and that's an issue. And then obviously the recruitment of folks to take advantage of the training, and in my mind, the restrictions are often in place that aren't legitimate restrictions. You flunk a drug test. Now, I'm not pro-drug, but I do understand that people who smoke marijuana probably could get a job too. Somebody will come in to try to get in a program, they test positive, they just send them away. Rather than say come back in 40. If you want a job that pays $60,000 a year, you'll leave the marijuana alone for 45 days. You'll come in and take the test and get a job. I mean, that's reaching out. Yeah, we're not talking about a crackhead here. We're talking about somebody who might have used marijuana. I say that to say the business is restrictive, overly restrictive. You don't do well enough in math. You need some math help. Well, so go to the community college for 3 semesters and do this. Yeah. If he had the money to go for 3 semesters, he wouldn't be out of work. Okay.
All right. So Dave's jumping out of his chair here.
Well, I agree with that. We got to give everybody a fair shot. But it's 2 things. Number one, we have to make this region more attractive to attract people here, and just as important, to keep our graduates here because they're moving away. We're not growing as a region quick enough. So that's where transit and parks and everything else, quality of life, comes in. But then the second thing, which Sandy mentioned earlier, which is we got to get our residents more skills, training. A high school degree doesn't cut it anymore. So the state has a goal of 60% of our adults having something beyond high school. In Oakland County, we call that Oakland 80 because we're going to try to get to 80%. Whatever number you select, we have got to be intentional and invest in getting people the skills that they're going to need for the kinds of jobs that we're out busy trying to attract to this region.
And these guys are putting a stopwatch on me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? With that being said, I go back to what Warren said earlier on, talking about it's a multifaceted issue. It's not just one solution that's going to fix this, and I don't think it's, Macomb County's got the answer, Wayne, Oakland, or anywhere else in the entire country. It's an issue right now trying to get the workforce. Macomb County, we've got 400,000 people in the workforce, yet there are 35,000 jobs in Macomb County alone still available for people to apply for. It's going to be a problem because you're seeing an aging, workforce. That's going to be a problem. So there's a lot of issues coming our way, but fortunately we got people like Jim Sawyer, who's the president of Macomb Community College. Jim, stand up for a second to be recognized because I love you. That's my former alma mater. Working alongside of our school districts in Macomb County, as well as obviously our planning department and all the folks that are in the industry to find out what it is we need to do to help them attract and retain talent. So it's a multifaceted approach, and fortunately we got the partners at the table to try to figure out how do we resolve this issue.
Okay, so we've got some audience questions coming in here too, so I'm going to read some of them as well. So here's the question, and Dave, I'll start with you. How will your county utilize the federal funding allocated from the infrastructure bill to improve broadband expansion?
Yeah, broadband is critical. Yet another issue that we saw during COVID about how important it is to everybody, and it's ripe for opportunity for regional collaboration. We are beginning to do this together. I know our boards of commission actually met on this issue to figure out what is a plan where we can all invest in the same kind of plan to expand broadband. But it's absolutely critical. So our board wants to use money for that, and I'm all for it.
Anyone else on broadband?
No, we're looking into that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at, all right. So let's talk a little bit of politics, if you will. You can never have a conversation like this and not talk a little politics. Our state, for better or for worse, has become a poster child for the rancor in politics. Obviously, when you have people who are threatening to kidnap and do worse to the governor, getting national attention. Curious your standpoint, because you've all been in politics for a long time now. What's changed in your view since you entered politics to help get the vitriol out of our current day politics?
I don't know that it's changed. I think what you're seeing is become more intense, and it's the primaries. I think primary elections have become much more volatile than they were, over in the past. If you're not adhering to one side or the other, your probably likelihood of making it through a primary to be a competitor in the general elections, you're much more challenged. So it's hard to find those moderate candidates coming through. Whether you have a little conservative value, yet you can understand a Democratic side, you tend to see that there's less tolerance within the party, and it's almost as if many of these candidates have to just basically adhere to, instead of dealing with the people, they're dealing with the politics and the party. And so I think primaries have caused a bit of a concern in the way they're being run or challenged by, the party leaders.
Warren, the evolution of politics today?
The polarization is so problematic because people now see it as I've got to win or I've got to win. And the whole concept of coming together, coming across the aisle to make a concession to get something done seems to be a lost art. And that's the most troublesome thing to me. If, as a Democrat, I have something I need to get done and the legislator is Republican, I have to cut the hog. I have to find ways to take less than I optimally would have liked to have to be able to get a piece of legislation done that will be beneficial to people. And now, even with voters, it's like, a guy gets beat up because he took a stand for something or lauded for taking a stand for something that would never fly. But, people are supporting taking the stand. If the stand doesn't help you move, the goalpost, I don't get it. I think that's the main thing to me is the rancor.
I mean, the only thing I would add is that we need more leaders, and I'll just use us as an example that refrain from the bomb throwing and the grenades and it works. It can work in occasion, but it doesn't work very well to get things done. And so, I think we need to elect more leaders that are willing to do what Benjamin Franklin said. He said, I'm a radical moderate. I believe that anybody that's not willing to compromise should be hung.
Spoken just like Brooks Patterson would have said that same thing, I think, yeah. I knew. Brooks was on the show for 15 years, I know.
Yeah. And Carol, if I could add, and again, no disrespect to the media, but they play a role in this as well. It's unfortunately sometimes they want to highlight what divides us as opposed to what unites us. And so they need to be a little bit more understanding in this civility and how to deal with politics. And you're good at working the crowds and trying to figure out how do you get a even playing field for both sides. And credit to you. But that's not the normal mainstream media. Whether it's print media, whether it's our local media, and even the national media. I mean, national media has just been atrocious. I can't even watch it. I don't know about you, Fox or CNN. I can't look at it because they're trying to guide your belief on a particular issue, and you don't know what to believe. And even now, social media. I mean, it's been somewhat of a challenge. So the media plays an important role.
So where do you get your news from? If you're not watching Fox or CNN, are you getting your news from anywhere? Or?
I make the news. That's my job.
What did he say?
So let me follow up with that. Hold on. You opened that door, my friend, so I have to go there. I got to follow up on this. There are rumors swirling, and I want you to look at me because I need to see your reaction when I ask you this question. I would be remiss if I did not address rumors swirling right now that you are considering running for governor in 2026, possibly switching parties as a Republican, and there's been a rumor that you are considering Brooks Patterson's daughter Mary as a potential lieutenant governor candidate. Reaction, my friend?
Listen, I don't mean to say this, and I say this with all great respect, and you brought it up. This is one of those things that a guy like Brooks Patterson would love to hear that kind of a question come.
He's up there smiling down from heaven right now. So
coming my way. But the reality is, I'm going to use a Trump terminology. Fake news, okay?
So you're not considering it?
I don't know that I don't say that I would not consider running, but this whole idea of switching parties and picking a candidate.
Some people have thought you are quietly a Republican. Would you consider switching parties?
You know what? I'm very much a Democrat, and when I say that, I'm extremely conservative on many issues. And so with that, it's kind of hard to define. Sometimes you say to yourself, what am I? It's kind of hard to come out of that. The Democratic Party gives me a hard time because I'm not hard-lined. Every time they've got an issue, they want you to carry the water for them. The higher up you go within positions, whether you're a mayor, you're a county commissioner, or you become a county executive, all of a sudden now you become more visible as that D or that R, and the party wants you to be that spokesperson on behalf of every issue that they believe should, be what we're doing or where we're headed with society. That's not my style. Never been like that, whether I was a sheriff or now county executive for 12 years. The reality is, what is the issue? I'm not here for the party. I'm here for the people. How do we resolve issues? And so it makes it difficult sometimes to identify. Am I a Democrat? Am I a Republican? Because I don't even think about that. I mean, many of you know, Candace Miller and I, we work side by side almost every day. Her and I are talking. Has nothing to do with politics. Has everything to do with how do we provide solutions to fix the issues going on in Macomb County. And that's how it should be throughout the state and throughout the country. Democrats, Republicans shouldn't matter. It should be your elected officials working together to solve problems.
So right now, you and Warren Evans are running for re-election. And Warren, how does this election compare to earlier ones for you?
Ask my campaign manager. No.
Oh, so wait, Mark is doing double duty now, too. Okay.
I'm Mark Hackel, and I approve of this message.
I think in many ways, the first one was the election.
I
had strong competition. I didn't have anybody in the primary 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And this time I have 3 people in the primary. But, I expect a strong run every time. And I really look at it like I'm the holder of the office now, not the owner of the office. And so that's the way it ought to work. And I always run as if I'm scared to death. And so that's what this election will be like. I'll be working as hard as I did in the first one.
And I'm not exactly sure if she's on or not, but Monica Conyers filed paperwork to run against you. Any comment about this?
I mean,
you can say no.
As your campaign advisor, you have no comment.
No, right, exactly. What he says.
All right. And Mark, since you are running for election?
I never think about it. I'll be honest with you. I just do every time I'm out there, I'm engaging with the public. I don't think about elections. I consider it this way. It's one of those things. It's part of what you do and how you get your position back, I guess, if that's what you want. But it's up to the people to make that decision. It's not up to me. It's up to me to get out there and let people know, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm interested in. I'm trying to do the best we can to serve you. And if all of a sudden they vote for somebody else, God bless them, move on, find something else to do. I don't sit back and worry about whether I'm going to get reelected or not. It's not up to me. It's up to the people.
Another question, another huge issue, pressing issue. We're in May, which is the Mental Health Month. We know that this has always been a huge issue in recent decades, and we know particularly on the heels of the pandemic, the stresses and pressures people are going through here. One of the questions talks about opioid deaths going on and growing here. And the question is, what one thing are you doing to help your community support mental health and combat substance abuse? And
Wait,
but you had a chance. You were over there representing two people, so it's Dave's turn.
Well, I'll kick this off because we've done almost nothing, invested in nothing more than mental health issues in Oakland County with our COVID dollars, the CARE dollars and the like, because this is a huge issue. It was a huge issue before COVID, but it was, frankly, the one silver lining, or one of the silver linings of COVID, is that it's reduced the stigma around it. People are now willing to stand up and say, you know what, I'm having these issues and I need help. The flip side of that is our providers are flooded with, and they don't have the capacity. So we've given millions of dollars to our nonprofit providers, to our schools, where mental health in schools is a huge issue. And we are going to open up I'm going to break some news here because I'm going to give the board, we're going to be presenting to the board within the next month. We're going to try to open up the first behavioral and mental health emergency center, emergency room for mental and behavioral health issues. We're going to start in Pontiac, but the idea is to have several of them around the county because it's just huge. And we need to treat mental health like we do physical health. We haven't for a long time. It's another area where we haven't made the investments we should. And we're going to kickstart it in Oakland County if we can.
I agree with Dave. I mean, we were working through our mental health authority to provide additional mental health funding. But, you know, through COVID, everything turns out to be mental health funding. I mean, people are going nuts because their businesses are folding. People are having difficulties for a number of things. So the support that we put in the community, even if it's not directly mental health dollars, is dealing with that issue. And I think it's critically important. One of the biggest problems that places have is, I do for Wayne County the medical health, and there is an authority that does the mental health. And the sad truth is the data is not something that we can share appropriately like we ought to, so that I can make decisions about, or at least understand what it is that the authority's doing and try to make sure that medical health and mental health are following each other. We're working on that. I mean, it's not a cry at this time. It's just the fact that I'm a data-driven person. If you give me the data, I'll figure out how to get out of the problem. But if I can't even quantify the problem because there are little bits of data all over here, that's problematic. And especially in a time when we need to make sure we're spending our money on the appropriate things, not throwing money at problems.
You know, and again, we're fortunate. I mean, there's a challenge that all this money is coming from the federal government to solve some of our problems. But let's take a step back real quick. CARES funding came our way. We were fortunate. Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Kent County, and the city of Detroit got a substantial amount of money to deal with that pandemic the moment it happened. Macomb County, for example, $152 million. What did we do? PPE. We're trying to figure out how do we deal with test kits and getting money to our businesses. $70 million of that went to the businesses to try to keep them sustained, keep them up and going. But that was what I call transactional. That money went so quick. And when you look at it, in the end, we're like, what did we really get for that? $152 million went like that. Felt like you were just standing on top of the county building, making it rain. Well, now we have a chance with $172 million coming to Macomb County, but every county in the state of Michigan is getting what's called ARP funding, American Recovery Plan. Every one of us is getting this, every county in the entire state, every municipality in every one of our counties is getting, even the state. So now we have a chance to do something what I call transformative. Rather than transactional, transformative. So we've been working with our Board of Commissioners, and they're committed to giving us a chance to start talking about some of the things we can do that's going to have an impact on the entire county that is a county responsibility. And with that, underground. Candace Miller, she came with a wheelbarrow. They're giving her $40 million out of the money to fix the underground stuff. Now I got about $100 million to finally do something with our jail. And with that jail, and this is kind of worn in our background, that whole law enforcement thing or whatever, law enforcement officers have been coming in contact, and so the folks working in the hospitals, people that have substance abuse, mental health issues. It's unbelievable the amount of people that have these issues. And if you probably know somebody in your own family that's having some troubles or challenges, and if you don't, you're fortunate. But this is a prevalent issue. So I tend to look at it from back in my days as law enforcement is we're coming in contact, law enforcement goes, yes, we're arresting them, they committed the crime, but we don't know what to do with them because we think it's mental health or substance abuse. What do we do? In Macomb County, what we're committing to do is right now we've got a study, and it's about $100 million for the actual structure, brick and mortar, coming out of the ARP funding. What we're going to be doing is transforming the facilities internally because we don't have the proper space for people with mental health substance abuse issues. And now along with that, the concern becomes, what are we doing about the treatment side of that? Internally, if they have to stay. So in other words, if we're going to make a determination based upon a systematic approach that that person can't be released, they're a danger to society, we're putting them in the proper size facility, the type of room that they need to be in, but we're also providing that treatment. Well, guess what? Where does the money come from to deal with the treatment? Aha. The opioid settlement. I got
oh, God. Okay, Mark.
I got to stay with
it. It's only a short form.
I still got 4.5. But that opioid settlement, we stepped in with Detroit. Myself and Mike Duggan went and sued the opioid manufacturers and distributors because we wanted it to stop. It wasn't so much because we thought we were going to get money in the end. We wanted it to stop, and it did.
We all sued them.
These two came together, Wayne and Oakland, and sued
Before
as well.
them.
One day, because they heard we were going to do it, so they jumped in and did a press conference the day before. That being said, so in the end, what are we getting out of this? Well, lo and behold, we ended up, and thanks to the Bernstein law firm, I got to throw a little plug out there for them, so Mark will be happy. With that, by the way, it's election year, Mark, if you want to donate to the campaign. Anyway.
He's also getting money for 2026 too, so.
Hang on. So with that, now what we're getting is we're getting sustainable funding. Now that word again, sustainable funding. What we're getting out of that settlement is $1.5 million for the next 18 years to deal with programming internally and those that aren't staying in the county.
I've never.
So we are going to be resolving substance abuse, mental health issues in Macomb
The real
County.
point there is everyone hears about the opioid settlement money, and my only point is you don't get a settlement unless you got guts enough to sue.
Right.
That's what created the settlement, and that's
so can
what
I make
we
a
did.
suggestion here? Sandy, I think we need to have another event on the opioid crisis and the monies and mental health. Seriously, this is such a critical issue. And I know this is very important to the chamber. I know you've had events before. And I know there's much more to say, but we're not going to have time to get to that. I guess the last time we were all together, Dave, you were brand new to your job. You had actually made dinner for the regional leaders at your house. And I'm told you're the Bobby Flay of Southeast Michigan. Pretty good?
Was it all right?
It was great.
So have you guys gathered since then? I mean, have you had time to get together? And what's the one issue before the county that you're working on together?
First of all, we were so sick of each other after that dinner, we've never gotten together. No, that's not true.
Sick of each other or sick from the dinner?
No, not from the dinner.
Oh.
Dinner was perfect.
No, I'm told it was really good.
Sorry, Dave.
Is there one issue?
I don't think we've gotten together the same way, but we do talk to each other regularly about issues, and if we need to get together, we do it. I think that's a very fair statement. I mean, I can call, and have done it, on his cell phone many times at off hours. Hey, Mark, what do you think about this? Hey, Dave, what do you think about this? I always get feedback in 5 minutes. I mean, we connect, we talk.
We do, and you see the name, once you see the name show up, you're like, okay, it's Warren, I'll grab it. If it's Dave, I go, oh shit, here we go, it's an hour and a half conversation, so.
Oh, I think that was a little bit of a dig, but that's okay.
By the way, I made the dinner, but Mark brought an incredible dessert from what was the bakery, Mark?
That was Ackett's Pies.
We'll give them a plug. Warren brought the wine.
Oh, what kind of wine? Is it red or white? Red or white wine?
I don't remember what it was, but it was good. I don't remember.
And Mike brought his appetite. So Mayor Duggan brought his appetite.
Okay.
So COVID kind of knocked us off, but
You knocked
we're
off your
overdue.
back.
So
I have a quick question for the audience as we're getting set to wind this down. Showing of hands, how many people are going to the upcoming Mackinac conference? Raise your hands. So a lot of people. A lot of people are here. That's good, Sandy. The coffers are, that's good. What one issue do you hope your regional leaders, you know there's a lot of conversation both in the conference itself and on the deck, you know, the porch of the Grand and other places. What's the one issue you hope gets attention during the island time with the leaders who are there? Dave?
You know, it's a bipartisan group, and if there is an overarching issue to me, especially with that crowd, it's our economy. How can we work together to make sure we're supporting the industries and the emerging challenges that we have around workforce that you talked about, whether it's site readiness, attracting businesses, keeping it. it is a chamber event. Let's talk about how we make Michigan as economically competitive as we can be.
Warren?
Yeah, I would talk about I certainly agree here, but I would talk about economic development. In our county, we've been doing, I think, a great job of bringing in new businesses, bringing in jobs, and bringing in tax base. Quite frankly, with foreclosures and that in Wayne County, we've lost a little bit in terms of revenue from, residential taxes, but we've made up for it with the taxes coming from the economic development projects, because we have not abated everything. People come and they pay taxes, and it's made up the difference. But I think there's so much more they can do. I mean, in Wayne County, that airport that we have that's 4 miles apart between Willow Run and Metro is a diamond that needs to be polished with more infrastructure, with more development there. It's a world-class airport. They win awards every year for customer service and those sorts of things.
And now it's named after you.
A part of it.
And congratulations, my friend. That's awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'll keep it short. Again, that is true. The economy, where we're headed with that, but again, I can't help it. We talk about it all the time, but it's never been resolved. Sustainable funding for 3 things: roads, roads, and roads, in that order. So we've got to figure out what we're doing with the infrastructure, and we've got to figure out the funding model, because there isn't a road, a bridge, or underground we can't fix if we have the proper funding to do it.
And this much I know, everybody driving here knows exactly what you're talking about with all the construction, which is great. We want the roads fixed, but there's so many challenges here. But
that's because you're in Oakland County. Macomb? Oh, man.
You're saying it's heaven on earth on Macomb, and then you get to Oakland and boom, it just changes.
I rode on Mountain Road the other day. Mark, we should talk.
I can't wait till you come to Mountain Road another year. That is going to be transformative.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for taking time. This has been interesting and fun. I don't know how many people, this is your first time hearing from our Big 3 leaders here, but they certainly shared some interesting insights and truly enjoyed the conversations. A round of applause for them.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. And again, thanks to Sandy and the rest of the chamber team for putting this together. Safe travels, avoid the potholes going home, and wishing everybody a very safe and wonderful day today, and we'll see you up at Mackinac.
Thank you.
Thank you.